Welcome to the Budget and Finance Committee meeting.
And are you on?
Well, I think I'm on. Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Can you hear me, Jim?
Now we can.
Okay, thank you. Speak into the mic, Ann. Welcome to the Budget and Finance Committee meeting, Tuesday, November 17th. I will call the meeting to order. We do have every member with us today, so we have established a quorum. Everyone has had a chance to look at the minutes from our meeting of November 3rd. Are there any changes to this that have not yet been submitted? I'm seeing lots of nodding heads. Okay, so those will be accepted as submitted. So I'm going to go right ahead to our CFO, Pete Finelli, for the October 2020 financials. Thank you, Pete. And I appreciate your team getting these ready for us with an early meeting this month.
Thank you to my accounting staff. They're awesome. They really do a great job. I can't remember, are you guys seeing the small print on your screens out there?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So it's my pleasure to bring you up to speed on the financials through October. A lot of the phenomenons that are occurring in October are translating to the same situation on a year-to-date basis. So I'll maybe just briefly go through the components of the income statement, starting with the revenues. I think we're all aware that golf has been up in rounds play, and the rate per is within a pretty narrow band of our budget, so we're seeing excesses both in October and on a year-to-date basis. Some of the peripheral things that go along with that, such as the ancillary revenues, which is golf carts, range balls, cell towers, all of those have been performing well with the golf resurgence. On the opposite side of the coin, some of the aspects that we all know about, such as bowling, the merchandise, and the food and beverage that goes along with some of the closures or restrictions, is manifesting itself in our budget. So overall in revenues, shortfall of about 37 grand in October. So the biggest line, of course, is in the expense side is salaries. We did have a considerable amount of overtime with how many open positions that Todd has in golf maintenance for the overseeding. And so that was the predominant factor in being slightly over. But on virtually every other category of expense, but for one, were favorable. So we were able to offset that revenue loss with an even greater amount of expense offset. And so 141,000 favorable to the operating budget in October. Moving to the capital, we've been talking about home sales in the APF solid again for October. There was unrealized losses in the bonds and the stock to a tune of 236,000 in October. And then I think some of you are aware of some of the deferrals that we have within our fixed asset or capital purchases. So the depreciation expense is lower typically because of the installation or set into motion date. So overall, there was a give back, so to speak, on the capital rated portion of 110, but overall favorable by about 31,000. Moving to the year-to-date, same. I won't go into the detail. The same phenomena are happening. Golf fees up, ancillaries up, and deficits in almost every other category. But we must have done really good on our budgeting because on 6.5 million, we were within 1,000 of our revenue projection. So that's pretty good, I think. Kudos to our staff that assisted in our process. Moving down to the expense, the overall was down 682,000. The biggest components, as we've talked about, were labor with a lot of the open positions. Utilities, we're starting to see some of the favorables for some of the lighting, I forget the word, I'm sorry, renovations within Beardsley and Palm Ridge, but also the closures of some of our rec centers back in the summertime especially. Repair and maintenance is a big favorable. That's a very, very high volatility, if you will. There's not a whole lot of absolutes within that category. And then the equipment is over 100,000 as well. That's a lot of times it's equipment that goes into our rec centers for umbrellas and park benches and things like that, and there hasn't been a whole lot of that here to date. That may catch up by the end of the year. We'll have to be seen on that. So again, with the close on the revenues, there were 681,000 ahead of our operating budget year to date. Moving to the capital related, strong APFs, we're close to 100,000 more infused from those. On unrealized gains through 4 months, 568,000 to the good. And the same question or comment I made on depreciation is true on a year-to-date basis of the delays within the actual put into service of some of our capital items. So a pretty good position overall, 1,521,000 ahead through 4 months.
Does anyone have any questions for Pete at this time? Lou?
No questions.
Harry? Lisa?
No question.
Gary?
No questions.
John?
No questions.
Kathy? None. Thank you, Pete.
You bet. So a quick capital update. As you all know, our annual allotment approved by the governing board was 5.9 million. We've issued just under 2.9 million purchase orders through October. 495,000 of that was for on prior year encumbrance. So on the current year budget items, we've issued just over 2.4 million of purchase orders on that. What we call the closed purchase orders is to say that from July 1st, when we ignited a purchase order to it's been paid for, we don't even say just the PO amount. We wait till it's entirely compensated to make sure that the amount paid to the vendor is in sync with the purchase orders. But on that 1.3 million that has been finalized and paid, we've had just over 173,000 of savings. So obviously that's a good position to be in after 4 months. Just a quick update of things that are within the non-deferred, but of material items that we have not executed a PO on yet. Includes the park transformer, some golf carts, one large pickup truck for landscaping, and then a bevy of less than $30,000 items. That was just my pivot point in this table to kind of keep it from being a very unwieldy screenshot. If any of you have any interest in any of these, you can certainly contact me in my office, or we post this, of course, every month out on the web. And I think there's a lot of discussion about deferred. In the last go-around within the budget cycle, we committed to having just about a 1.7, 1.8 million of deferred. We're sticking to that. Palm Ridge is the biggest item for both the parking lot and the lighting. The bowling scoring system. We do have some contracts that are getting ready to be moved on that for delivery in late spring, so that's a good thing especially since they've been having some hiccups in that. The flooring for Arch Johnson, the putting green over at Pebblebrook, and the miniature golf, east property fence maintenance, and a pickup truck, and then about 14 other items under 30 grand. That's a list of the items that we are committing to delay until January I say the 1st, but in fact, it's the 15th, because we need to make sure that December year-to-date is on track. So you saw just a few minutes ago, the $1.5 million positive environment we hold. November isn't closed out, but most likely APF fees continue to be strong. And I think we had one more recognized uptick in the unrealized gain on the equities and the bonds. I think we're about $500,000 or more ahead. And since we've moved now into a more of a 90-10 ratio, there's going to be a lot less volatility on that. So most likely we'll see a positive environment for that next month. So I'm telling our staff that we're going to stick to no issuance of POs on any of these items until we're cleared from that. That's the commitment we made. But I think we'll probably know by mid-December whether or not any COVID-related impacts or economic impacts are manifesting themselves. Right now, it doesn't, certainly doesn't seem to be that on our strength of our golf. But some of the budget items within the revenues are starting to creep up in terms of their impact. We didn't necessarily budget for special events to have zero revenue. We didn't really budget for bowling to be at 40 to 50% usage. We didn't budget for some of the impact in the food and beverage to continue like that. So we are looking at some deficits that are likely to continue as long as COVID's around. So we want to make sure we keep our eye on the expense side, and I think we're doing pretty good on that.
Pete, I've got one question. I know that bowling is down because we've had to limit the access, the number of lanes that can be open, but how much is the deferral of the scoring system? And I understand we've had some hiccups with that. Is that having much of an impact on the revenue, or do you know?
I do. First of all, the bigger impact is the lane restrictions. So the bowling hiccups that were manifesting themselves with some vigor within the last month, it's abated in the last couple of weeks, to my understanding. We had one night entirely wiped out on a Saturday night. They just couldn't get it running back up. But I did go to vary on that, and how much was that worth on revenue loss. And sometimes you think it's going to be more, but it was about $600. So an individual item here and there doesn't destroy it, but more the restrictions. Quite bluntly, even if we would have, it's my understanding, had we even wanted to execute a contract with Brunswick, they were in COVID lockdown up till about a month and a half ago, and I'm sure they had a backlog. Barry feels pretty comfortable that if we sign these contracts within the early part of January, he can deliver in May or June, which is the perfect time.
Okay, thank you. Any of my committee have questions? Terry, I'll start with you.
Nope, no questions. Good, Pete. Thank you.
John?
Yes, I have a question. I hope it's not a pointed one. Relative to the deferred capital projects, would there be any benefit in cherry picking off any of these and advancing them on a per item basis, or maybe even globally? I think I've become very comfortable with the way things are going, and so some of the, if you will, the caution signs that we put up, I'm just questioning whether releasing those would be of any benefit to the community.
Our project manager, Carl Wilhelm, did discuss with me the miniature golf one, because the availability of the vendor, if we could have that queued up to go in the essentially January 15th, he would like to do that. On the biggest item on here, the Palm Ridge, we did get a quote from Rose Paving, and I think it was YFG Paving. Both of those executed a price freeze, if you will, barring any kind of asphalt, price change. And the good news on that is I think the paving component was upper 500,000 for 5 blocks. And I'll explain in a second that there is some issues with that one. It might be, it's a good thing in a way it was deferred, because there is some options within the parking lot for one of our clubs is looking at that. But I think the budget was 701,000, so we've got a lot of room if, in fact, this asphalt price somehow were to go up. But we're good on that. The lighting causes Carl a little bit of concern, because this involves kind of, I'm not very technical on this, but a lot of the wiring within the lightings could have some unexpected findings, so it's always good to know that we've got room on the parking lot. On the Pebblebrook is actually a perfect timing for the spring. We wouldn't want to be disrupting that during the peak season, so the putting green into the May or June is ideal. And my understanding from Russ on the property fence line is there's no real good or bad time for that. But he hasn't come to me and saying, if I don't get this, I'm going to be 30,000 more because we delayed. I'm not hearing that on any of our items.
Thank you.
Kathy?
No, I have no questions.
Okay, Lisa?
No, I have no questions.
Gary? Luke?
I'm good, thank you. No
Okay.
questions.
Thank you very much, Pete. Appreciate that. We're going to move on to item 3.03, which is our BNF policy FI01. And this was presented to the governing board workshop a week ago last Friday. And the one thing that they suggested we come back and do was look at section 3.3. And this says, we added, the CFO will report the capital budget financial status to the Budget and Finance Committee on a monthly basis. The issue with this is we don't meet in July and August. So we need to amend this, and I would suggest that we just say each month that the committee meets, or something a little bit, gives us a little bit of flexibility. If there would be a reason that we didn't meet one month, we wouldn't be out of policy. But I wanted to see what others of you might think. So, Kathy, I'm going to start with you. This was kind of your baby to begin with.
I'm fine with that change. The only thing, my question would be, if the Budget and Finance Committee, for some reason, doesn't meet for 4 months, does that mean we never get any information on it?
Well, I would think that would be a very unusual time if we did not meet for 4 months. We go dark, all the committees and the board go dark in July and August.
Oh, okay.
But if there was a circumstance that that we did not meet 1 month, I would not want us to be out of policy.
Okay, I'm fine with that change. It could be the CFO will report the capital budget financial status to the Budget and Finance Committee as the committee meets. Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. John?
I echo anything that Kathy supports on this. I think simple is better than complicated.
Okay. Terry? Lisa?
I agree with Kathy.
Harry? Lou?
How about something like to the Budget and Finance Committee at regularly scheduled meetings or when requested by the treasurer?
Oh, now that's good.
That satisfies Kathy's issue if we go dark for any
Okay,
reason.
so we would.
So it would say after, to the Budget and Finance Committee at regularly scheduled meetings or when requested by the treasurer.
I'm good with that.
I'm getting this down. Master President.
Madam Treasurer, Lou, I just, when you say regular meeting, that's twice a month. Maybe we would just want to take it the last meeting of the month for the B and F, because having the capital tracker coming up every 2 weeks would be really not burdensome, but I don't think it would make sense that way.
What's Pete's feeling on, how much work
Yeah.
is it, Pete?
Yeah, we do it now. I'm of the argument that less definitiveness of the timings is better, because there could be oddities that throws you off. So I kind of liked her verbiage, to be honest. It was just however she worded it.
Give me your wording again, Kathy.
Of that. Let's see, I said CFO will report capital financial status to the Budget and Finance Committee when it meets. When it meets.
Well,
do-
when it
Requested by
meets
the chair.
indicates each meeting.
Oh.
So,
On a monthly basis, when it meets. I do like the treasurer edition, because I think that's an important role of the treasurer.
Pete, how often do you do it?
All the time.
I mean, my understanding is that you're on this every day.
Yep, exactly. Just
So as
assembling
far
it
as
for the
prep time to present it,
moderate.
And the simple is good. You know, the way we saw it today suffices.
I mean, you could probably even make it a little less robust as far as the PowerPoint presentation. You know, just 6 slides, black and white.
Yep.
That's what requires the work, right? I mean, getting out PowerPoint, putting this and that in. I know looking at your multi-sheet workbook, that is one of your sheets, correct? Can you take a summary of that, snapshot?
Well, I believe the three of you guys that are on the subcommittee understand that that's actually not the capital tracker,
Right.
but
It's a summary
I
data
created a
from
lot
it.
of filters that, you just take the completed, quite bluntly, in a snapshot of the completed, it was done in 30 seconds.
I have a,
The deferred was a one-off that I just wanted to communicate to you guys. I could update it, but just to communicate it. And then the savings is something I watch all the time for our general manager to have the latitude to, the very few, but they exist where we were under, where the quotes are coming in over our budget. It's good to be in that position to be able to afford him the latitude to proceed. So I initially thought you were saying, I literally watch it, not just watch it, but I'm in there every day for new requests that come in,
About something like
This
the
is not a-
last
this is not a
regularly
privilege to
scheduled
do.
meeting
I have a.
month,
I-
last, go ahead, Kat.
I have a suggestion. Why don't we say the CFO will report the capital budget financial status to the Budget and Finance Committee and Treasurer as requested, or requested by the Budget and Finance or Treasurer. That way, when, Ann, you set the agenda, you may not have it twice a month. You may just request it once a month. So it's driven by how it's requested by the Treasurer or requested by the Budget and Finance. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to say?
I don't like the onus on the treasurer. I think it just should be, it should be a scheduled
You
item.
suggested it.
I'm sorry?
You suggested it.
What? No, I said at regularly scheduled meetings or when requested by the treasurer.
Yeah, I'm okay with or when requested by the
Okay,
Treasurer.
but-
I'm okay with that.
But then and of course, Ann is very efficient, so I'm sure she will remember to do that. But if she forgets to do that, then it's not on the agenda, open public meetings. If you want it just once a month, just say the last meeting or the first meeting of the month, and then, or when requested by the treasurer. That way, it's once a month, takes a little work off Pete. So I would rephrase that to say, at the last regularly scheduled meeting, and Finance Committee, at the last regularly scheduled meeting or when requested by the treasurer. So that way, it's once a month, where the treasurer wants it more frequently. We're wordsmithing now, so.
Madam
We spend an
Treasurer,
hour doing
Madam
it.
Treasurer,
Started
maybe
this,
it'd be just
George.
easier to have it attached to the regular financial. When he presents the financials for the month to the B&F committee, have it attached to that.
I'm okay with that.
That's, you get it every month, just saying. Don't recreate the wheel.
So the CFO will report the capital budget financial status to the Budget and Finance Committee as part of the presentation of the monthly financial statements.
There you go.
Okay, George, just a reminder, you started us down this path.
That's right, that's right. Or when requested by the treasurer.
But you rescued us. No, you started that way. We're good, we're good.
Okay, let me go over this again. Make sure I get in here what we all think we're saying. The CFO will report the capital budget financial status to the Budget and Finance Committee as part of the presentation of the monthly financial statements or as requested by the treasurer.
Works for me.
Works for me.
John? I didn't hear your head nod. Terry? Lisa?
Works for me?
Harry, and I know it does for Lou. Okay, thank you so much. I will redline this and take this back to the governing board. Moving on to our next item, we have FI 13, which is our collection policy. And I have invited Deb Long to be with us here today. Deb is one of the people who administers this policy, and therefore, she's a better one to tell us how some of these things need to read, and she understands the process much better than I think any of us will ever hopefully need to know. I hope we're not on the receiving end of it. But Deb, I'd like you to go ahead and start this discussion, please.
It's on, don't touch it. Green light is good.
Can you hear me? Yep. Okay, so what we're really doing is just adding the 3.2.2 and 3.2.3. What that is doing is starting to send some of these older people that have not paid. So what our typical lates go, 30 days, you're expired. On 31 days, you get the late statement. That tells you that you've been charged the 10% late fee, and if you do not pay that within 90 days, the property is going to be liened. So at 90 days, I lien the property. I send out a statement to them showing what the additional fee is for the lien fee and ask them to pay it. So the extra verbiage that we're trying to add, the 3.2.2, is that after we've sent that to them, we want to be able to, we started sending some of these to collections, to our collections attorney. We had not been doing that for quite some time. So after we send out the statement showing that the lien has been placed, if they don't pay within 30 days, then we will start the collections process. So there is a letter that I send out again, the statement again, saying that you have 30 days to pay this amount or to call me and make a payment arrangement, or the file will be sent to the attorney for collections. I started doing some of these end of September, beginning of October, and I've gotten a pretty good response once I send out these statement about the collections. Kind of the same thing as 3 years ago when nobody would believe that we were going to start charging them late fees. They were upset about that to begin with, but we had people paying on time. Then we went to the lien part, and people got used to that. So I think now it's time to, we're getting some of these that are getting close to the 6 years, so we can't ever collect more than 6 years. So we've got some that are getting to be 3 and 4 years worth of dues that they owe. So if we don't get these to the collection attorney, we're going to start losing money on them. So I just wanted it in black and white. It's things that we're doing, but I just want it to be in black and white, so in case somebody asks, that it's actually in the policy.
if you'll notice also under 3.3, we have addressed how the payments of the in-house accounts are applied. And these are all in accordance with Arizona state law. So there is an order in which we apply these. And then we've also added the payments of collection agency assigned account and the order in which they will be applied. We also talk about payment plans that will be considered. So, and looking back under 3.1.2, we did just a little wordsmithing. It says the association will then generally, it just now says they will send a letter notice. So we took out what we thought was a little bit questionable verbiage there, made it a little bit clearer. So I'd like to get the thoughts of the committee on this. John, I'm going to start with you over there in the corner.
I have no questions. I'm comfortable with the way it's written, and we can always change it if experience guides us accordingly.
Kathy?
Nope, I support these, good changes.
Thank you. Terry?
Yeah, I support them, but what happens after 5 or 6 years? Do we ever foreclose on the property, or?
We never have foreclosed on a property before. What ends up happening is we end up writing those dues off as bad debt. So that's something that's up to the board, whether we foreclose on a property or not. That verbiage is in there when I send out that collection letter, and I think that's what scares a lot of people into paying.
Yeah.
But we have never foreclosed on anybody before.
Just for clarification, you can foreclose, though, if the board approves?
Yes,
Okay.
and
So
that's
if
in the
that
verbiage.
gets so
and-
high.
Yeah, that comes right from our attorney.
But with a lien on it, can we not recoup those?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so when I place the lien on it, what that does is it alerts a title company for if the house is going to sell, they call and they say, how much is owed before we close this? Because they can't close a property with a lien on it.
Okay, thank you. Harry? No questions. Okay, Lisa?
No, I'm good with the changes.
Luke?
I'm confused with the timelines.
Okay,
It's a-
so,
So it says such suspensions, this is in 3.1, I guess. So there's a 30 days from the due date for both association member cards and tenant activity cards remains until, so we have a suspension after 30 days, and then it says there's a suspension after 90 days. I mean, and then the next paragraph is 30 days, and so by the time you get to 3.2.2, how many days have expired? That's my question. What I like to see is, for example, in 3.2.2, it would say 30 days, which is 120 days from such event. In other words, everything's 30 days, 90 days. Well, how many days are we in now?
yep.
I mean, it's just confusing to me. I think it would be confusing to people that are getting a little older and may forget to pay their activity cards. They look at it and go, is it 30 days, 90 days, another 30 days? Then 3.2.3 is another 30 days, but the 30 doesn't have the 30, it just spells it out. To me, it's just a little confusing. I like to see it in table format.
So from
30
9,
days, this occurs, 60 days, this occurs, 90 days, this occurs. I'm looking,
120, and then,
you know,
yep,
if
150.
maybe if there could be a little table in there that just says, these, you know, these are the dates in which such and such occurs. Just confusing to me. I'm sure everybody else understands it, so if I said to you, what happens after 120 days, Ann?
I'm going to look at the table that Deb's about to do.
I mean, you know, it's just, you know, make it simple. You can have all the narrative you want, but at the end you say, this is the trigger at 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, 180 days. Thank you.
Not a
That's all I
problem.
have to say.
Well, Lou, I'll have to say, I think it's a pretty darn good idea, Deb. Is that something that you could do and we could?
Yep,
we
nope,
could-
that's a good idea.
I know
Yep,
you understand it clearly,
yes.
correct? Okay, as long as somebody does.
Well, Do we have a consensus within the committee? I'm seeing lots of head shaking yes. Okay. Deb, if you could kind of draw up a table for us that we could insert in this and then send that to me. We will table this and take this up at our B&F committee meeting on the 1st of December, and then it can go to the board workshop on the 4th of December.
And you want me to change the days in the verbiage also to 120 and 150?
I think as long as you have a table at the beginning or the end or somewhere in here, then it all makes sense. But I would also say on 3.2.3, if you're going to spell out 30 days, then in parentheses put 30 days. You know what I'm saying? To me, it's a little confusing because we in the first part, we have 30 as an integer, 90 as an integer. In 3.2.2, 30 is an integer. In 3.2.3, 30 is a narrative. Just for clarity. I don't mean to be nitpicking, but I'm nitpicking.
You know, I would have to agree. I think the clearer we make it, the better it'll be. We're not changing the intent or the content or the way things that are going to happen. We're just making it so, and this might help Deb if she has an owner member come in and try to hassle her about it.
Right, and that's why we want this in the collection policy. So if we're going to establish this being used more, we want to be able to say, here's our policy, this is how it needs to be done, and this is the point you're at.
And this is where we are at a point in time.
Yes.
Exactly, yes. Yep, nope,
Thank
I'll
you.
do that.
So, okay. Thank you, Deb, and just give me a holler when you're ready to sit down. We'll
Sure.
take a look at it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. The next item on our agenda are the FY12 subcommittee findings, and I want to add, first of all, that Terry Burks has joined the committee, the subcommittee, and I appreciate him working on that and adding his input. I want to give all of the committee a little update on what happened at our governing board meeting that was on the, whatever day, 6th, I believe, 6th of November. And the governing board had a workshop, and that was followed by a special meeting. And we discussed and probably cussed a little bit about the policy and especially the breakdown of how our investments were to be. As you may recall, it was this committee that took forth to the governing board a split of 80-20. So the governing board, like I said, discussed this at length. We ended up, after much discussion and voting, changing that to a 90-10 split. And that has been executed to where we are now at 10% in equities. And we will be, first of all, the governing board has to approve the new FI12, which has a ceiling of 40% on the equities. Then we will come back next month and put the 10% ceiling on equities. Wasn't that part of our discussion, George?
Madam Treasurer, yes, it was, but in the special meeting, the policy was changed to no more than exceed 10% in equities.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
That's
I
quite
misunderstood.
right.
I thought it was coming back to the committee and then going back.
Believe me,
go
it was
back.
a confusing meeting.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one. Okay, so we do not need, B&F does not need to go any further with FI12?
No, we do not. The committee is, the governing board truly thanks the committee because without their direction, we wouldn't have been able to come to that consensus. And what happened is that after much discussion, there were, I think, 4 motions that were presented. 3 of them were defeated. The eventual one was the 90-10 split that came out. And that was a change of policy by Director Connor and approved by us. And it was already posted on our policies. It's the current one that's in there. It reads 90% fixed income, and we will exceed no more than 10% in equities.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. It takes some work off
I try to be clear. I try to have clarity.
I like that. And I'm going this is part of subcommittee findings, I think, so I'm just going to ask Pete to enlighten us as to what transpired then, when you did the, you made the change.
Yeah. If the question was, how did
What's the
that
question?
Vanguard change?
Yes.
So we have a Schedule B that was developed when this whole investment committee did it back in 2015, 16, 17. By 1 o'clock on that Friday, had already communicated with Mr. Maslick with Vanguard, and he stated that he would be able to make the transaction and get the Schedule B updated to be in sync with that. You're on there, Ann, myself, and Mr. Schwind were the three representatives that are on the Vanguard requirements for any transaction like that to take place. So we now have that, I wouldn't necessarily call it policy, but an amendment with Vanguard that's in sync with the way we are invested currently. No transaction fees, there's no losses recorded. It was simply something that they do all the time when they're rebalancing. It just was moving it to a new ratio.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone have questions for Pete about that? Lou?
No questions, Pete. Thanks for making that modification to the percentages.
Lisa?
No questions, Pete. Thank you so much.
Terry? No questions. John?
No questions.
Kathy?
No questions.
Harry? No questions. Okay, thank you. I'm now going to ask Lou and John and Terry, I'm not sure who my spokesperson is today, but to give us an update on the subcommittee findings.
Thanks, John.
Don't all speak at
Okay,
once.
well, a couple things. Terry sent out minutes, and the minutes, as I get here, basically what we're saying, okay, here we are. So if we look at the minutes, we had some discussion as to direction from the treasurer, indicating now that that policy has changed, no more than 10%, how should we invest the 90%? We know we had looked at Sun City Grands, and we'd looked, and we were getting Sun City's policies. So the discussion went on until someone said, hey, listen, are you going to hire a financial advisor? And Pete said, well, maybe. So I think the subcommittee's position was, if you're going to hire a financial advisor, let's wait until that person's on board and then get direction from them, and then we can make some suggestions. So then someone in the committee indicated that we should put out either an RFQ or an RFP to vet what's out there and bring in a financial advisor. But really, the hiring would be Bill and Pete. And I think that's where we left it, that we need to get a financial advisor on board. How we do that is up to BNF, and obviously, it's really up to Bill and Pete, or I guess Bill. So then John came back with an excellent proposal, his thoughts on where are we going. I think, and John, I don't want to speak for you. Do you want me to continue this?
You're doing real well.
Thanks, John. So he feels that we should get an RFP out or an RFQ, depending upon, whether we want a proposal or a quote. And it can be a combination of both. But it's really up to BNF to speak with the GM and the CFO to say, what input do you want from us? do you want the subcommittee to meet with Pete and come up with, and I had done a little bit of research and sent out some stuff, if you will, a boilerplate for an RFP and 2 RFPs that are actually on the street of nonprofits. So we could take that and work with Pete and Bill and Pete's staff to create an RFX, put it out on the street, see what we get back. I think there has to be some kind of a standardized document that the review committee would use so that everybody is measured with the same metrics. Then at that point, we can look at next steps. But really, if we're going to bring on a professional to give us guidance, let's bring them on, and then once that person is on board, and we thought that in the RFP, there might be 4 scenarios. What's our current investment policy? What is, for example, Sun City Grand? What is Sun City? And then ask the financial advisor to review all this and give us best of breed. You know, is our policy the best? Is Sun City Grand, Sun City, or what do you think we should have as an investment policy? I think that needs to come back to BNF and then some decisions made for recommendations. So I think that's sort of the as John would say, what's the word? Iterative. It is an iterative. John, take it away.
You did quite well
Oh,
for
thanks, John.
extemporizing.
I'm just a parrot.
Yeah, and so there's not a lot of color commentary I can add to the play-by-play description, but I guess if George, if you thought that the board meeting was chaotic, I'd have to steal those words and use them for our subcommittee meeting on Thursday. But I think we ended up in a good place. If we could, our knowledge base needs to grow, both within the subcommittee, committee, and the board. And one source of that education can be using the RFP process. We will be communicating with people that are professionals in the area. And if we play our cards right, we can get to the point where then we can have a at least quasi-fact-based discussion on what ought to go into a policy statement that would sort of live on after the initial exploration. So I think what I was hoping for would be an endorsement from this committee, the treasurer, and the governing board that we are on the right track and we should proceed. I see us as being a help to Pete and Bill. It's their area, and I'm very much aware that there are lines that we should not cross wherever they might be. And I want to make sure they understand that. And then from those, that first process, we will gain knowledge. Gaining that knowledge is what we need to bring back to the appropriate people to then have a good discussion. So that's, I've said it enough, and I'm starting to repeat myself. Thank you.
Terry, do you have anything you want to add to this?
No, John and Lou summed up the meeting. It's, do you want us to move forward with an RFP and look for an investment advisor? And we can do that with Pete and his team. So we're ready to go.
I'm going to ask our president to weigh in here just a little bit on this process.
Well, the process, one of the questions that we have, and we wanted to make sure who has the absolute authority to hire this person, number one. And I know we have a call into our attorney about who has the final thumbs up or thumbs down. One of the things I really want to stress about the subcommittee and the BNF committee, this is new uncharted waters that we're in right now, because back when this first idea came up of investing in this and that, we had next to nothing in our coffers, and now we're in a completely different position. And I know in prior years, the committee and the group of people who were sitting in your places did tremendous amount of work and a tremendous amount of thought process that went into this. And because that is something that was a start, I always use the idea of Lego blocks. When you start snapping them together, all of a sudden you get something built up, and until you put the first couple in place, you can't build on top of it. And that's one of the things I think you guys have embarked on a journey on this one. And I know, John, when you say about chaotic meetings, one of the little sayings that I have on my laptop is from Sun Tzu, and he always said this way: in the midst of chaos, there is always opportunity. And that it is. But right now, we are in waters that we weren't looking at 3 or 4 years ago. So it's imperative, and the thing that I will definitely say to you as a, not as a important statement, but to you, the things you're doing now are setting the foundation for a community moving forward for many, many years in the future. And I only ask you to take time and wisdom to make these decisions, and to do that, there is no reason we have to light the fire. We don't have kerosene and arrows being thrown at us. Take the time to make a wise and informed decision. Thank you.
Thank you, President George. I would like to hear from other members of the committee before we go forward anymore. Harry, what do you have to input?
Well, I've been out collecting signatures, and this issue is number one in the minds of the people when you talk to them. They want to know your position and what your feelings are. And I was surprised that there's that many people paying attention to this. And my comment to a couple of them, because they thought, well, you got to stay in the stock market and be heavy in the stock market. And then I'd say, well, are you going to be the one that goes to explain to 20,000 people that we just lost 30% of their money? And they look at me and they say, well, I don't want that job. So it is a hot topic out there that the people are paying attention to.
Thank you. Lisa?
Yeah, I'm going to ditto what Harry just said. It definitely was a hot topic. I think, I don't know if Lou, you got hit up the other night when we went to get signatures at the drive-in movie the other night, but I know I did from many people who wanted to know. This was definitely the hot topic. But I'd like to thank the subcommittee for really putting forth the effort into this, because this has been something that's definitely been weighing on my mind. And I think I really appreciate the effort that you guys have put into this, and the time you spent, and Pete, the time that you've spent with them as well. And I appreciate the time going forward that you will spend on this. And a financial advisor was something that was weighing on my mind as well. So I'm glad we're going in that direction. So thank you.
Kathy?
No, I think the Budget and Finance Committee can provide as much or as little support as the board desires. I like the direction that the subcommittees are going, and I appreciate the work that they've put into it. I think the RFP, RFQ is the right way to go. And I think pending what we hear from the attorney as to who has the ultimate decision in hiring, we follow that direction.
Thank you. I've heard some good input here. I just want to add, first of all, I want to thank this subcommittee, because you guys have done just a yeoman's amount of work in a short amount of time. And I know the board was very impressed at the workshop, and John did a great job presenting to the board, and I think opening their eyes about some things. I think I'm kind of hearing that right now we need to wait until we hear from Hazelwood as to who has the hiring authority before you all proceed too much more, because I don't want to see you taking your time or Pete's time until we know the direction it's going. So hopefully, in a couple of weeks, you will know something, and then you can proceed. I'm just trying to think of the interest of the time that's being input into this, and once we know something from Hazelwood, we can kind of determine which way we'll go. I will be sharing this with the board too, to see what input that I might get from them. So, any comments about that?
Well, if we don't know who has the ultimate authority to hire, do we, I mean, it's November. If it's another couple weeks for the attorney to make a decision, let me ask this question. No matter who has the authority to hire, is it the direction of the governing board to, in fact, bring on a financial advisor? That's question one. Question two, the follow-up question to that is, if in fact the governing board's position is that we should have a financial advisor to guide us through a policy, then I would make a motion that the subcommittee, with the agreement of the hiring authority, work with the CFO to develop an RFP for the retention of a financial advisor. So, I mean, if the governing board's position is, yeah, we want a financial advisor, then I think the subcommittee can get together with, I guess the objectives of the RFP will not change no matter who has the authority to hire them. So if the position is we're going to bring on a financial advisor, as a subcommittee member, and I see John nodding his head and Terry, you know, let's throw something on the wall and see what sticks. And I think with the 3 documents that we've been sort of passing around, it gives us a little meat on the bone, and we can at least get something in place, right? But if Hazelwood says it's the governing board says, yeah, go ahead and do it. Now we have a document. I mean, I think our current 90, no more than 10%, thank you, John, is solid. I think the funds that our bond funds are solid. I think our equity funds are solid. So I don't think it's, as George said, kerosene and arrows and fire and that sort of thing. But the sooner we get this done, the policy gets approved, just one more thing we can move forward on. That's my thoughts.
Mr. Schwinn has come to the table.
I
There
saw
you
him
are,
creeping
Mr.
up.
General Manager Swind. May we hear your input, please?
Thank you, Ann. I agree with 100% with what Lou was talking about. The only editorial change that I would like to make is the letter Q relative to an RFP. RFP are typically going to hand tie you into a cost, and I don't want to make a decision based on pennies versed on, I would rather get someone who we feel is the most qualified, and we then negotiate price. So I would think
then we go for the quote, not the.
moving forward, correct. Correct.
That's what we originally said, but there's some gray areas there as well. But definitely, thank you for that input.
Well, I do agree that if, no matter what happens, who has the hiring, if the board wants a financial advisor, we will need that. I just was trying to keep you all from going too far forward if it wasn't necessary, but you all are on a roll, so I'm not going to stop you.
Me, personally, I just soon have something in writing once, and I mean, I'm not reading, reading the tea leaves, we're gonna get one, right? It's just prudent to do that so that, the imprimatur is given. We've done due diligence, we've hired a financial advisor, we've presented 4 different scenarios, we vetted this person, we think they're solid, and I think you dotted the i's, crossed the t's, and you go to the next problem.
Well, looking at that type of scenario, I would think that, do you have a meeting this week?
This Thursday, yes.
You have a meeting this Thursday. The week after this is Thanksgiving. Are you meeting? You're probably not meeting that week.
We're giving thanks
You're giving, and I'm giving thanks too for
that
a
there's
lot
no
of.
meeting.
But I'm thinking if you can give us a report at our BNF meeting on the 1st and have someone from your committee come to the governing board workshop on the 4th of December, that could give us some direction then at that time. Does, how do the members of the committee, first of all, feel about that? John?
Well, I'm certainly happy to hear that we have an endorsement to go on with the RFQ. I think we've got some momentum, and I'd hate to see us lose that with a break in the action. So allowing us to get to that point is very good. At that point, we're in control. We can stop the process until we get clarity on who's the daddy rabbit going forward. So that'll all work very, very nicely, including the report on the 1st. The governing board meeting may be problematic.
Well, you
for
and
some of
Lou
us.
and Terry may have to do rock, paper, scissors to see who's at that meeting, but.
John does very well at the meetings. I understand the last presentation he made was excellent. So I
Well, they
think we
may be
should
voting for an
continue.
Academy Award, so you might want to be in the running, Lou.
What was that, Ann? I'm sorry.
It's a team effort on all this. Believe me, the subcommittee works pretty good. I think we bring different things to the discussion, different backgrounds and different perspective, and so we are playing off of each other quite well, and I'd like to see that continue through that next document.
Terry?
Yeah, I agree with John. Let's build the RFQ and at least get that out of the way so we're ready to go.
Okay, is the committee comfortable then with bringing something back to us on the 1st and to the board workshop on the 4th?
The minutes that Terry did indicated that we would have something for the December 1st meeting, so John can present it. That's Friday, right? No, well, the first is what?
The 1st is our regular meeting, it's on a Tuesday, and then the governing board workshop is on Friday, the 4th.
Yeah, I can't do the 4th, but I could do the 1st.
I'm gonna let you three work
Yeah.
this out.
We'll have to see what John's.
Kathy, what input do you have on this?
I support this, but when we're done with this discussion, I do have a question or related to this, but I'm fine with the direction we're going.
Harry? I'm totally fine with the direction we're going. Lisa?
Yeah, I agree with the direction we're going.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to Kathy and get your question.
Yeah, my real question is, it relates to the attorney taking 2 weeks to give us an answer. First of all, if the Budget and Finance Committee has a fiduciary responsibility, it seems to me that we should support or approve the hiring of such and such and move that recommendation forward to the board. If the board has a fiduciary responsibility, which I believe it does as well, then the board would give the general manager permission to go ahead and hire. I'm assuming when we did our investments that the board took action on whoever that investment company was, and it's managed then by the general manager. Just an observation. I'm new to the committee, I'm new to the process, but it makes sense to me that we can move this attorney decision along much faster, being an attorney myself.
George, didn't you tell me the attorney was out of office all last week?
Yeah, he just was unavailable, available to us. And to your point, Kathy, you were exactly right. Before, when we had nothing, the board did approve it with the blessing of the B&F committee. And there was a subcommittee, and there was an investment committee, and there was an investment subcommittee that went along with that. And one of the criteria that we're asking is that we have a fiduciary responsibility. Yes, we do, and that's why we amended the policies as such. However, the hiring comes down to, is every hire that we have in Sun City West going to go through the governing board? And that's it. And again, if that's the case, Pete has a fiduciary responsibility too, but he wasn't hired by the governing board. So we're kind of in that, as we would say, the 100 yards of gray area, and we just want to get a stamp of approval about exactly what decision and who has the other end. Personally, I think that we all work together here, and I don't think that Bill is going to come to us and, this is what I'm doing, or vice versa, or we tell him what to do. We have a very, very great working relationship with the staff and with the general manager and with the committees and all that go on there. I think that we would be able to come to a good consensus about that.
Thank you. Thank you, President George, for your input. Well, it looks like then like we have come to an agreement of where we're going with the FI12 subcommittee. And again, I commend all these members for the intense amount of work they're doing. I just read these minutes and I'm very impressed with them. I want to move on and see if there are any general comments from the committee before I take them from the audience. So, Lisa, if you have any comments?
No, no comments.
Harry? Lou? Kathy? John?
No comment.
Harry?
No comment.
We do have several board members with us here today. I'm going to start with Jim Young. Do you have any comments, Jim?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Donna Maloney?
No comment.
Sharon Heddick? No comment. Okay. What's that? Oh, the committee's doing the work. I'm just. General Manager Schwind, you have any comments? CFO Pete? None? George?
There are no comments from the audience that have emailed in for this. And my comment is, I cannot thank this committee enough for the hard work they're doing. One of the number one goals that we had as a governing board this year was to make sure that the budget and the budgeting process and everything else was first and foremost, and there, you guys are on the path to making this a real easy task for our CFO and staff to continue. And these are the footsteps and the footwork that we have to do beforehand. I cannot thank you enough for all you do. I have been giving the ultimate blessing of having some of the best committees get work done here in Sun City West, and I cannot thank you all enough. Thank you, Madam Treasurer.
Thank you, President George. I want to make note that our next committee meeting will be 2 weeks from today, which will be December 1st, 9 o'clock here in the Social Hall. And without further comments, the meeting is adjourned.